So this is a really great topic. You're talking about anytime something goes wrong in business, you can point specifically to a lack of training.
Yes.
So instead of blaming or pointing fingers, it's more of taking responsibility.
Yes.
This is DJ Carroll, hashtag Coach Carroll. He's a serial entrepreneur. He has multiple six-figure businesses. He's been through everything by now, and we're sitting here talking. I'm visiting his house in Louisville. He's a very good friend of mine, and you just came up with an awesome point, and I had to take the camera out and make a video. Do you talk about this?
Yeah, because I was telling Keith, anytime something bad happens in business, 9 times out of 10 you can point it to a lack of training. So my guys don't know how to fix something, they don't know how to answer a question. If somebody in the office doesn't, messes something up, it's probably a lack of training. Now, it could be an employee not following procedures. Like if they've been trained and they're just not following procedures, then that could be the mistake that you have to correct. But that's why we have velocity as one of our core values, because I can point to that speed in the right direction. Like if an employee's not going in the right direction, not following the rules, like that's their problem, not mine. I can make it their problem and fix it. But the training is literally saying, hey, it's 9 times out of 10 it comes back on the business owner. I didn't train that person well enough and then set them up to fail, basically.
So a good example would be, let's say you send a crew out and they're doing apartments and they're soft washing, and they forget a whole side of a complex, or they clean it and then the green stuff still doesn't come off, or they miss the downspouts or something like that. Yeah. And are you saying people want to do a good job but they didn't know because they weren't trained properly? Or possibly. Sometimes people say, why didn't you do that?
Why didn't, if I come back and I'm like, hey guys, the building's still green, like they obviously should know. they get trained on that. But what I'm talking about is more specifically, it's hard to train someone because, when you hire them on from the very first time, right? Like you're like, hey, you're hired, start signing this paperwork. They're costing you money and not making you any money. So like you try to get them out there and operational as fast as possible. But in that, sometimes you can skip steps on the training, and that's where, a lot of times in breakdown in businesses, you can see that. So
how do you train somebody, let's say they're green, they're brand new, and to get them so they fully consciously get it and they've done the thing and they're competent, and then they can just go?
I mean, checklists are huge, right? You learn that when you're flying. You have a checklist for everything. You have a pre-takeoff checklist. You have a rolling checklist. You have all these checklists. You have to make that for everyone in your company.
There's a dope book called The Checklist Manifesto on audible.com. It's amazing. You just made me think of that. There we go. Keep going.
So that, and then, systemized training, like with our technicians in the power wash and window cleaning business, we have a 2-week online course, and we match that with 2 weeks in the field training. And so we literally can take a guy off the street that's never power washed before, running through 2 weeks worth of training, and he's ready to go.
How much did you bang your head before you started piecing all this stuff together and realized that?
I mean, it wasn't too bad. Probably 9 or 10 years.
9 or 10 years. So did you just have an employee grab the phone and videotape you, or videotape yourself?
I had my brother, literally the way I did my technical training was, and that's what's in the Easy Pro certified training, is that I literally took my brother and I was like, come on, we're going to go do jobs with this technician. So me and him followed a technician around for 2 or 3 jobs, and I documented. He had never been pressure washing before. So I'm like, if you have any questions, ask me. And so I was going through what I thought the technician should know. And then every once in a while, my brother would be like, well, what about this? And I'm like, oh, that's great. Hit record. Boom. And I'd answer the question. So it was like a living frequently asked questions through video format. And so my guys watched that, and now we make it available for other people that either want to train their employees or want to get in the business.
You just gave me a big aha. We just did the window cleaning and pressure washing of this huge house that we clean quarterly, and now we're doing the pressure washing. And a new guy who's working for me, I literally took a half an hour and I made him watch me do it, and I showed him the different tips, and I did we're not doing the concrete, but I did an example on the concrete of what happens. I showed him how the 0 tip can literally cut your fingers off or blow a hole, destroy something. Sure. And I explained everything to him, what to do, what not to do, to the best of my knowledge. And then I had him do it, and then I watched him do it, and then I corrected him, and I let him go until he got it. Even though the job had to be done, and we were there way longer than usual, and it was his first time, by the time I let him go, he was able to do the whole fucking house.
Yep.
And then he came up to me and he thanked me. He goes, dude, thank you so much for showing me and explaining. And I even apologized. I was like, I know I'm over explaining and telling you every little detail, but I just want you to know in case of this, in case of this, in case of that. And then he actually came up and thanked me because I equipped him to become confident. But I should have had somebody videotaping that whole thing.
Because then you would only have to do it that time. And then because now when the next guy gets hired, you have to do it again and do it again. Here's the other reason why you need checklists is because if you don't have a checklist for that guy, now you're...
So a checklist is... I'm sorry, I'm having like a breakthrough in real time. Do you just take out like a little Google Docs on your phone and just 1, 2, 3... How do you checklist?
We use Trello.
Trello?
So I have a whole Trello board of checklists, but...
do you print this out and give it to them, or is it on like...
I mean, they can access it on their phone, but we give it to them as well.
Tell us more.
Because the checklist, if you don't, they say this in flying, like, you don't want to crash to be because of your bad memory. So, like, if you don't have a checklist, you're literally making that guy rely on his own memory, which is going to be faulty. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but at some point.
I feel like such a dumbass right now. I've had to explain myself so many times, and I found myself coming home frustrated, like coming in the door at the dinner table, venting to my own wife, saying, "These fucking guys."
Oh, I do that too, so don't feel special.
And
I still have it happen.
Oh, okay. But I realize this shit's my fault for not...
Yeah, but it's almost like impossible to completely checklist and automate everything because they're like every time I make a checklist or every time we make a system, we uncover like 5 more because as you're telling them to do like these 5 things to make this thing happen, on the 3rd or 4th one, it's like, well, how do I do that? And then you have to have a checklist for the freaking checklist. And so it's like you go down this rabbit hole of like never ending. But the more detailed you can get.
Heebie-jeebies. So do you ever get guys that are like, I just can't fucking deal with it. I don't. My brain isn't working.
Here's a prime example. Dennis, one of our technicians, he went through the online training. He did the on-the-job training. He came to me. He's like, hey, coach, I really think you should add some safety training in there. And I was like, okay, I thought I talked about like safety. It's all low pressure. He was like, yeah, but I burnt my leg on the muffler.
My guy did the same thing. I showed him and he walked me. He goes, ah! I'm like, are you okay? He's like, I burnt my leg on the muffler. I'm like, I didn't tell you that. But I'm like, why didn't I? I thought it would be common sense because I burned myself on the. But you gotta burn it.
It's like I've never found a cold muffler. Like normally they're all fucking hot, but it's like I don't know. So now it's like I have to make another video that says, "Hey, here's some burn and trip hazards inside the box truck. Let's go look." And then the video is like, oh look, here's a hose. Be careful, don't trip on that. Here's a hot muffler on the back of an engine. Don't stick your skin to it; it could burn you. And so it's like. It's all those little bitty things, but it's like, that's a lack of training. Like, Dennis burned his leg because I didn't train him. It's the whole point of the video.
And hey, later on in the day, he had this big mark on the side of his leg. I was like, dude, was that from the muffler? He's like, oh no, that's just some dirt. I burned my other leg. There was nothing there. I thought there was a big burn on his leg.
Burn mark?
No, but...
It's like, yeah, bro, you're branded in now. You're part of us, right?
So, all those little things. So when you... take the time to think things through, and that opens up a whole nother thing, which could be another video, but we're not going to do that today, is if your pricing is too low, you can't even afford the time to do all that shit because you're running around like a chick with your head cut off.
Yeah, and ideally you should do all of this shit when it's still you. Like the bigger your company gets, and then you decide, oh, hey, I got 20 people, maybe I should systematize this thing, like... you should probably do it because, like, think about it. If it's just you, you're like, okay, turn on the engine. Click. All right. Squeeze gun. Like you could document it a lot easier when it's just you. It's a lot more thought out, but I don't know.
Bro, awesome.
Yeah, no problem.
You can find him anywhere. # Coach Carroll. Put links in the description below to an amazing 3-part interview that we did, and it's also on podcast, Untrapped Podcast. It's going to be, dude, an amazing... I'm just going to stop right here because I just want to keep going later, bro.